Everybody's doing that. Hey, thank you very much. That's not Jimmy's, is it? All right. Very good. I'm not trying to cut out. It's just I didn't have one. So there you go. I need to do something before I start, if that's okay. Just very briefly, just because when you begin to, I told you a couple weeks ago. I've been praying through some things, and God's been working on some different things in direction in my life. He's kind of opened up some stuff that's kind of odd and weird and good all at the same time, and so it's very good. But I can't be beat up by something, even the slightest thing. And this may not seem like a big deal to you, but the whole message here on honor, and one of the very first things I did, I said, everybody who's in here on Wednesday night, I want you to Shabbat for me. And you yelled, and then my default was to try to get you to do it louder, and I said that was pitiful. And I just want to apologize for saying that was pitiful. Okay, all right. I'm just telling you, and that may not mean anything to you, but yeah, when the Lord speaks to me about something that's more important than you thinking that's that I should or should not. So there you go. I apologize for that. It was great. It was awesome. It was fantastic. We do not don't neglect and negate that stuff. So anyhow, we want to talk about honor today. And if you have your notes, if you have your phones and your tablets, those kind of things, that the notes are in there for events. We don't like to take too much time, but just for those of you that have not taken the time to download a Bible app, YouVersion is a great one. I get no money from it, so it's not like a commercial, but it's a great one. And it also allows you today to go to the events tab. And if you go to the events tab, you should be able to see our name on there. I looked this morning. I think maybe ours is on there. There may be other ones on there, but I think ours is maybe the only one that's on there. And if it is, you can click on that, and it gives you some of the announcements, not all of them, some of the announcements, some of the things that are important, and also allows you to be able to follow on your notes. And I just realized that I put an incorrect passage up there. So the Matthew, we don't even have to put it up there. I put the wrong one. I want to read Romans chapter 13, verse 7. If you're there, say I'm there. All right. Romans chapter 13, verse 7 says this. Because I feel like I said something differently. The water's throwing me off here. The water's messing me up. Pay to all that is owed them. Taxes to whom taxes are owed. Revenue to whom revenue is owed. Respect to whom respect is owed. Honor to whom honor is owed. Owe no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. When we have a tendency to view things in very right and wrong, and that if someone has wronged us, it is almost the Bible talks about it. And we have a tendency sometimes to repay evil for evil. We give back in like kind. If someone has ever wronged you, just let's be real here for a second. I'm not going to ask what you've done. I'm actually going to assume that the Lord has delivered you from this moment in your life. But if someone has wronged you, what is your natural inclination to do back to them, right or wrong? Wrong. Very good. All right. I know it shames us to say it, and it hurts us on the inside to say it. But Jesus, when he was telling them that if someone slaps you on the one cheek, that you're supposed to turn to the other cheek, can we testify in this moment that that's not the easiest thing in the world to do? That when all right, we're cathartic here today. That's good. We're getting some stuff out. That's good. That when someone hits us, and someone slaps us, my inclination is not to turn the other cheek, but my inclination is not even to slap back. My inclination is to pick up a stick and go to town. That's my inclination. So not only am I going to try to give back in like kind, I'm going to give back in greater kind. I think of a movie, The Untouchables. And if any of you have ever seen The Untouchables, it's an older movie. It's about Al Capone and Elliot Ness. And there's a scene to where he says, if he hurts one of yours, you put one of his in the morgue. And you come back. And not a very biblical scene, but I mean, it's the way that we think. That if someone does something to us, that automatically in like kind or in greater kind, we're supposed to do back to them. And sometimes we have a tendency to believe that honor and respect are things that are earned. We have a tendency to believe that in order for me to give you honor, in order for me to give you respect, you have to earn it. That there has to be something that you do that shows you being respectful in order for me to give you respect. And I know that because that's even a saying that people say respect must be earned, that honor must be earned, and all those kind of things. And I read this scripture, and sometimes the scriptures, if I only read a part of them and only look at a portion of them, I have a tendency to believe that they're talking about one thing when they're really talking about another thing. That they're talking about something that may be in the physical when it's really talking about something that's in the spiritual, or something in the spiritual that it's really talking about in the physical. And I read this passage in Romans chapter 13, verse 7, and it's interesting because Paul starts the passage here in verse 7 in chapter 13 talking about finances. And if I'm not careful, then I get in my mind that what God is talking about in this passage is finances. And in finances, what I begin to think of, spreadsheets, and I begin to think of credits and debits. And I begin to think that if he's talking about money here, he's talking about money here. And I've got to make these things add up. And then I begin to think about giving back what is owed, and that pay taxes to whom taxes are due, and to give revenue to whom revenue is due. And my mindset would begin to think about the bills that are due, and maybe on my spreadsheet that I know that on a certain day my phone payment's going to be due, and I got to pay it, otherwise I'm not going to have a phone. And I got to know that the all-important satellite, and cable bill is going to be due. And if I don't pay that, I'm not going to be able to see the Celtics play on NBA League Pass. And so I got to be able to pay that. And so I begin to think about car payments, and I begin to think about insurance payments, and I begin to think about house payments, and I begin to think about all the payments that are due. And I begin to think about money more than anything else. But I want to explain to you today that God's economy, even when dealing with money, has nothing to do with money. That God's economy has nothing really to do about money. It has nothing really to do about trying to make sure that you give back in like kind. What God's economy is about the fulfillment and the payment of what is owed. Now, again, we begin to think money sometimes, but I want you to read this passage again. The passage in Romans chapter 13 is not about money. It's about paying back what is owed. Romans chapter 13, verse 7, once again, here's what it says. Pay to all what is owed to them. Taxes to whom taxes is owed. Revenue to whom revenue is owed. Respect to whom respect is owed. Honor to whom honor is owed. Owe no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, or any other commandment are summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. The passage that you actually can probably get on your screen, but you have in your notes actually the correct translation, because there was a particular word that I wanted you to be able to hear in the translation. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 says this, Jesus says, don't think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. That Jesus did not come to abolish the law that we understand, but he came to fulfill the law. The economy of God, it has nothing to do with finances per se, but it has to be with the fulfillment and the payback of the debt that is owed. It has the payment of the thing that is owed, and that's different than finances. And so I want us to begin to look at that. What is the law? If Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5 that he came to fulfill the law, what is the law? It would be easy for us to begin to think of the law in terms of the commandments. I want you to understand that the law is not the commandments. The commandments would be those things that would say, don't murder, don't steal. All the stuff that he began to list in this passage. He says, you know the commandments, that thou shalt not murder, that thou shalt not steal, that thou shalt not do this, and thou shalt not covet, and commit adultery, and all those kind of things. We begin to think of the commandments, the law, but the commandments are not the law. The commandments are the result of the law. The commandments are the things that the law would say you should or should not do. The commandments are the result, the summation of the law. And what begins to happen is this, is that we have a tendency to think about murdering and stealing and actions and how we're supposed to repay good for good and bad for bad, and we think that is somehow the law. But the law is really not about the commandments. The law is about a principle, and the principle is to love. Paul said that this is what Jesus came to do. Jesus came to fulfill the law. And he said all the law can be summed up in one phrase, to love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus did not come to take away all the stuff that we weren't supposed to do. What Jesus came to do was to give the fulfillment of that, to give the payment of that. Murdering and stealing and all those kind of things placed a debt on our life. And we had to repay that debt. And what Jesus came is he came to be able to repay the debt. Here's what Jesus did. Jesus came to repay a debt that he did not owe. Jesus had never committed murder, so he did not owe the debt for murder. We did. And you say, now hold on, Pastor, I've never ever murdered anybody. Well, if we look at the New Testament, Jesus actually said, have you ever hated someone in your life? And if you've hated someone, you have committed murder. Jesus did not commit adultery in his life. And we may say, hold on, I have not committed adultery. And I hope that you have not committed adultery. But the Bible says this, and Jesus' own words said this, that if you've ever looked at another person with lust in your heart, it's been the same as committed adultery. And if we could all be honest, we could go down and we, by the very letter of the law, we could say, I have not done that. But by the heart and the tenor and the nuances of the law, that we are all guilty of the law. And what Jesus said is, he said, I came to pay the debt that you owed. Jesus did not owe the debt for the payment of the law, for the payment of all the sin and for payment of everything that we had done. And he came to repay the payment that was due because we owed the debt of the law. Because we had committed the sins, then the debt was due on our life, and Jesus came to repay it. But he came to pay that and fulfill the law so that we in turn could now pay the debt that we owe. Do you know that you still owe a debt? Do you know that there is still a debt on your life? Now, the timeline of the book of Romans, in case you don't know, was after the death, burial, and the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The timeline of what Paul was talking about here was after Jesus had already come and fulfilled the law and paid the debt for all of the sin that was out there. The timeline is after that. Jesus paid a debt that we owed, but now we have a debt that we are to pay daily. It is not about earning salvation. It is not that. But look at what Paul says. He says, pay to all what is owed them. Taxes to whom taxes are due, revenue to whom revenue is due, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. He's saying there's still going to be debts that you are to pay. It is no longer the debt of sin on your life, but because Jesus paid that debt, there is a debt that you owe. Sometimes they will be physical debts, that we are to pay our bills, that we are to give to what we do, what is due to whoever it is due, that if we owe a payment, we are to pay it. That is being a good citizen. That is being a good Christian. And sometimes I know you got to be late. Sometimes the finances aren't there and all that, but you have a responsibility. You understand that. But also, along with us understanding that we owe a debt financially in this world, we also owe other debts. He added in, with taxes to whom taxes is due, revenue is due, which we can all understand. But he said, I want you to pay respect to whom respect is due. I want you to pay honor to whom honor is due. And then he says in verse 8, owe no one anything except to love each other. That we have a debt of honor, that we have a debt of respect, that we have a debt of love that we are to pay today. See, the debt that we owe is the debt of honor. It's the demonstration of love. It is the demonstration that God has done something on the inside of us, and so because of that, we have a debt to someone else. You see, you can't run from honor. Sometimes we're afraid of honor. We think someone, again, I told you at the beginning of this, I don't want to sound self-serving with anything that I say. It's not about you thinking that I'm great. It has nothing to do with that. But it's about God has placed people in our lives that we are to pay honor to them, and we have to pay respect to them, and we are to love them. And you can't be afraid of honor just because someone has abused your honor in the past. You can't be afraid of respect just because you have lost the respect of someone else. We are to show love, and love is not the greatest way to show honor. The Bible would teach us that love is the only way to show honor. That we have a demonstration of love that we're to give to someone else. My only debt to pay is to be one of love. Do you know that you're bound to the one or to the thing that you owe? You're bound to it. You know, when we talk about owning cars, our Yukon, our Denali out there, the big land boat that we drive. A few years ago, we went and we got a loan to be able to do that. We didn't have the money to do that. Somebody said, oh, is that yours? Do you own it? And I say, well, I own one out of however many months there is. I own that tire. That tire is mine. You know, that's the things that are there. And as we got going, a little bit more. Say, now we own the door. And now, hey, the back seat, that's ours. The steering wheel, just purchased it this week. You know, it was good. And so we begin to go that. And then we get to the place to where finally that last payment is sent in, and it's sent in and say, I own it. And that's such a freeing thing. And so whenever that happened a few months ago, and then it's like, okay, then things start breaking on it, and you got to buy more. That's okay, but that's okay. It's my mess. It's my break now. This is not the bank's. But while I owned only a portion of, and Holly and I only owned a portion of that Denali, we were bound to the bank because we had a payment to the bank. We owed the bank, so we were bound to the bank. Paul tells us, owe no man anything except to love them. Now again, if you get in your mind that I'm talking about money, you're going to be thrown off by this. And I'm telling you, I think it's bad that you have a house payment or a car payment or something. I'm not. I mean, I want us to be out of debt. That would be a great thing. But this has nothing to do with money. Because the idea, and then in the time where Paul was talking about money, and he's talking about taxes and revenues and all that, he begins to go into honor and to respect and to love. Do you know you are bound to the one that you owe? And he's saying, I want you to owe no man anything except for you to love them. Which means there is going to be something that binds us together. And that thing that binds us together is love. I am bound to you. I am connected to you. Not because I owe you money. Not because there's some sort of thing that you've got hanging over my head. I am bound to you because I owe you love. I owe you respect. I owe you honor. There is a debt that Jesus paid for my life, and he fulfilled the law and paid the debt for all the sin that I was going to have to answer for. That was done. But the law was that I am to love one another. Everyone is to be summed up in the law, love your neighbor as yourself. The thing that I came to fulfill was to fulfill the mandates of the law. So, when I have paid the debt of sin, when I have paid everything in your life, Jesus says, since I have done that, you still have a payment that is owed. It's not to the debt of sin anymore, but it's to the debt of one another. That you are to pay honor to whom honor is due. That you are to respect those to whom respect is due. And you are to love those to whom love is due. How many people in your life is love due? The answer, if you don't know, is everyone. When God says your neighbor, it's not just the guy that's right next door that you hope doesn't throw his leaves over in your yard today. Jesus told the story in the Good Samaritan story, and he said, now, the man who was beaten up, who was that man's neighbor? So the idea is that whoever is out there is looking for a neighbor. And for you to be able to pay a debt that is owed, you've got to find that person to whom you owe the debt to, and that means whoever you come in contact with is the person that you owe a debt of honor, respect, and love, wherever it is that you go. You're bound to one another. The thing that keeps us walking in unity, which is what Jesus said we're all supposed to do, is not that we have the same name over the door. It's not that we wear the same T-shirts. It's not because we just have to or somebody gets mad at us. The thing that holds us together in unity as believers with every other believer is honor, respect, and love. The debt that we owe to the other people around us. There's got to be a demonstration of love. It's not just enough to simply not dishonor someone. Have you ever just thought, okay, maybe I can just be indifferent to them? Again, we love sayings that are not biblical, and they sound good. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. You've all heard it. That sounds great. It's actually not biblical. It's not enough just to not murder someone. It's not enough just to not hate them. It's not enough just to not dishonor them. You have a debt of love. You have a debt of honor. You have a debt of respect that must be paid. Why? Because you're to owe no man anything. I think it is. I don't know. I don't know that I'm explaining it well enough. Because, see, I've had people in my life, and my uncle is a pastor. And my uncle said that he had a gentleman come up to him when he was leaving the church and going somewhere else. He was leaving the church, and the gentleman came up to him, and he said, you know what, Pastor? You can always be assured I never did anything to hurt you. And my uncle, who was a very gentle man, a very soft-spoken man, I remember he told me, he looked at him, he said, yeah, but you never did anything to help me either. There are times it's not just enough to not hurt someone, but you have to be willing to demonstrate love to someone. You've got to be willing to help someone, to pay a debt of honor, to pay a debt of respect, to pay a debt of love. It's not just enough where I can say, well, I can't say anything nice, so I'm going to walk away. No, it means I got to bite my tongue. It means I got to grit my teeth, and I can't just fake it till I make it. I've got to pray over it until now the feeling of love swells up in me, and the person that does not respect in the earthly my love, my honor, and my respect, the person that does not earn that, the person who has not earned that, I've got to be willing to give it to them freely because I owe it to them. You see, sometimes we have a feeling to think, well, they haven't done anything to earn it. It doesn't matter. You owe them anyway. The person in your life, think about love. They have not done anything to earn your love, but you owe them love anyway. And can I remind you that while you were yet sinners, while you were unlovable, Jesus loved you anyway. You were unlovable, and God gave his love for you so much that he sent his son to die for you. And so if God can look down on you who is unlovable and demonstrate love, you can find that person that you have just decided not to hate and turn your mindset around and demonstrate love to them so that you won't owe them anything anymore. Does that make sense? Do you know that some of you in this room are probably bound by things in your life because you're not willing to give up honor, respect, and love to someone who you think doesn't deserve it? You're laying your head on your pillow at night, and the entire night you're thinking about what they did to you. They're not. You are. Well, they didn't do anything to respect me. They didn't do anything to honor me. I would submit to you that that doesn't matter, because if they can earn it, they can lose it. And you're to give them the honor, respect, and love due to them. Owe no man anything except to love one another. That your love would be a demonstration of the debt that is owed to the people that is around you. That person who did not earn your love is still owed love by you. And so you've got to figure out a way to get past your stuff in order to love that person who did not do anything to earn the love, because love is not earned. It is just given away freely. If we would believe the Scriptures. If we would believe what Jesus taught, if we would understand that the entire law that was fulfilled is summed up in the words to love your neighbor as yourself. You see, the thought, when we encounter another, there's times that we don't even attempt to find out if they're worthy of our honor. We just kind of dismiss them. They haven't done anything for us, or they've done something wrong to someone else. The thought should always be, the thought should never be, do I owe them honor and love? The thought should always be, this is a person that I have the privilege to love, honor, and respect. Because there's going to be times it's going to be difficult for you to demonstrate love, honor, and respect. There's going to be times where you're going to be too busy to stop what you're doing to do something with someone who is worthy of your love, honor, and respect. You get busy in life. You have hurts in life. You're not going to put yourself out anymore. But your thought whenever you see someone, whenever you're walking down the street, I know you got stuff to do. I know you're busier than anyone else in the whole world. I understand that. I know that there's hurts that people don't even understand. I know that. But I'm telling you, if you would get in the mindset, not to where, did they earn my honor? Did they earn my love? Did they earn my respect? Did they earn me talking to them this moment? Instead of having those mindsets, that everyone you look at, you say, this is a person I got a privilege to love. This is a person that I've got the privilege to give honor and respect here. This is someone that I can repay a debt of honor and love and respect, that I will owe no man nothing except that I love him as I love myself. So when I see you, I realize I've got a debt to pay you. I've got something I owe you. It's like carrying that $5 bill around in your pocket, and when the person that you owe $5 to, you say, hey, I owe you this, and I give it to you, look for opportunities to do that. It's the same way with love. It's the same way with honor. It's the same way with respect. Not that they've got to do anything to earn it, but I'm going to say it is my privilege to serve. I know Holly and I, even earlier on in our marriage, and our boys are young, and sometimes it gets hard. Sometimes it gets tough, and you're doing the things. And I remember Holly's statement a lot of times, and I tried to carry it on, and even, I'm going to be honest with you, even just recently, I've really tried to pick that back up again. And God is working some stuff in me through this process. And I remember Holly would say, it is my honor to serve you to our children. As she was changing a diaper, as she was cleaning up a mess, she would say, it is my honor to serve you. And I've heard her say that out loud. And we begin to try to have that mindset. It is my honor to serve you. And it changes the way you look at the baby. It changes the way you look at the person who might have done you wrong. It changes the way you look at circumstances. And listen, we get so bound by other things. We're in bondage to hate. We're in bondage to bitterness. We're in bondage to hurt. We're in bondage to everything that we've went through. And if we would just say, I'm not going to owe hate anymore. I'm not going to be in bondage and be bound by bitterness anymore. I don't owe that anything. So that debt has been paid. So now I will pay the debt of honor. I will pay the debt of love. I will pay the debt of respect. I will begin to give that out. I will owe no man anything except when I see them, I realize I owe you love. I owe you honor. I owe you respect. And so I'm going to begin to give of that freely. This is a person. This is a place that I have the privilege to be able to love and honor. That's the mindset. You see, when encountering another, you simply look for ways to pay them the honor that you owe them. The saying of respect and honor are earned sounds good in the earthly, but it is not a biblical concept. The actual truth is that respect and honor are to be given out of love. That I look for the ways. The person that has absolutely nothing to give me, I give them all, and I give them respect and honor and love. How do I do that? How do I do it? How do I love? How do I not be bound by other things? How am I set free by simply choosing to love one another? There's a couple of different ways, and it's found there in that passage. And one of them is this, that you got to learn to think of yourself in terms of honor. Now, there is a pride that we're not supposed to have in the sense that we have done everything. Have you ever heard somebody say, I'm a self-made man, I'm a self-made woman? That's the pride that no one needs to have. But you do need to walk with a sense of honor. You need to realize who you are. You need to realize that the name that is on your life carries something. When you honor yourself, you're capable of honoring another. Well, I'm a dad, so here we go. That's why, young ladies, show yourself with honor when it comes to the boys that are trying to dishonor you. Show yourself with honor. Stand with honor. And then just so nobody gets upset, guys do the same thing because some girls are crazy. Stand with honor. Stand with honor. Honor yourself. Hold yourself to a higher esteem. When everybody around you, not just the young people, not just the adults, but those who are in the office pool and those who are next to the water cooler and those who are in the factory, and when everybody else is acting a certain way, why don't you stand with honor? Why don't you hold some honor about yourself, that you do not have to do things the way other people do them. You do not have to give up your standards and your scruples to be able to be accepted by other people. Learn to stand with honor. Learn that your name means something. When I asked Holly to marry me many years ago, and it was an awesome moment for me because she said yes, because I didn't know. And so it was an awesome moment. And I remember telling her, I've got nothing to give you but my name. And that's proved true, isn't it? I had nothing to give but my name. In Richer for Poor, Holly's like, I don't know what that first one is. I don't know what that is. But that's okay. I got nothing to give but my name. Sometimes when I drop my kids off, and they drive to school now themselves, but when I drop my kids off, I remember telling them, say, your name means something. It means something. How people look at you means something. And it's not being high-minded. It's not being haughty. That is completely and totally against the purpose. But you are to carry yourself with honor. When you begin to live a life of honor, and you can honor yourself, when you can lay your head down on your pillow at night and know that you have not laxed your standards for that day, then you are living a life with honor. And if you live a life with honor, then you can honor someone else. You need to think highly of yourself. You need to understand that you carry the name of the King. You need to understand that you are a child of God. You need to understand that you have been forgiven, you have been bought by God, and there is something different about you. And do not demean and lessen yourself to be around people who do not have that high standard on your life. Don't do it. Now, why do you need to know that? And why is that not just something that I would say? It's because the Bible says, Paul wrote, to love your neighbor how? As yourself. If you don't think highly of yourself, you're not going to be able to think highly of anyone else. Matter of fact, here's what I found out. I found that most people who accuse you of something are accusing you of the very thing that they are doing behind closed doors. And they just assume that everyone else is going to act like they act because they live a life of dishonor, so they're going to assume that you live a life of dishonor. If you begin to think that your life is honorable, then you're going to see honorable things in other people. You're going to begin to see people who are worth you giving their honor despite what everybody else sees. You're going to be able to love them as you love yourself because you're a child of the King. You didn't deserve it, but God gave it to you anyway. So that person that everybody else turns their back on, they can be a child of a king because they didn't deserve it either. And God can pour out His Spirit on them just as He poured it out on you. And so you begin to give a life of honor. You see, there's a difference between being high-minded but walking worthy of who God has called you to be. How do you carry yourself? How do you live your life? What do you spew out of your mouth? How do other people see you? What are you willing to give into? These are all questions of honor. And if you would begin to understand that as you honor yourself as a child of God, you will be that much more able to honor the people around you, to love, honor, and respect them as you do yourself. Does what I do, does how I live reflect the image of Christ? That's how you walk in honor. To ask yourself that question. I'm going to get on him, I'm going to post, and I'm going to say, and you're going to let anything, and all these people and the things and the whatever, and then the blah, 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 boom! And it's venomous, and it's hateful. And it goes against any biblical mandate that we have, that if we have an ought or an offense against someone else, that we're to go to them to get it right, instead of blasting it to everybody else so we can get a you go girl. Or guy. It's not a sexist thing. Does what I do, does what I say, does how I live, does how I present myself carry honor? It's not about having to wear a three-piece anything. I don't own a three-piece anything. I used to, but I don't anymore. But how do I carry myself? Is it different when I walk in the room? That's honor. And if you're willing to live a life of honor, then you're going to be able to give honor. Love your neighbor because you owe it to them as you love yourself. I don't think a lot of myself. Well, that's really because you're in bondage to a lot of other things that you're not willing to let go to. And if you just will be willing to owe no man anything because you're bound to who you owe something to. And if you still owe forgiveness to someone else, you're bound to that unforgiveness. And if you still are harboring ill will, you're bound to that bitterness. And I want you to be set free today. I want you to realize I'm not going to owe anybody anything. I'm going to forgive. If I got to write a letter, I'll write a letter. If I've got to make a phone call, if I got to stand up before I preach and ask forgiveness for something just so that I'm clear, then let's do it, because I'm not going to be bound to anything. And second, what do? I got to learn what honor looks like. If I'm to give honor and respect to someone else, what does it look like? Well, the Bible actually would tell us that honor and respect look like love. So what does love look like? 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I don't think it's on your screens because we didn't put it in there. Here's what it says. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or rude. Love does not demand its own way. Love is not irritable. Love, I hate this one, but love keeps no records of being wronged. I'll forgive you, but I won't forget it. That's not love. It's truth. It's not. Love does not rejoice about injustice. Well, they got theirs. But love rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. Love never loses faith. Love is always hopeful. And love endures through every circumstance. How do I honor someone else? How do I respect someone else? How do I give them the love that is due them? Not because they've done anything to earn it, but because the Bible says you owe it to your neighbor to love them, to honor them, to respect them. Your neighbor being anybody that you come in contact with, including the ones that you had bad contact with last night. That person, how do I do it? You walk with honor for yourself. You live a life to where you love yourself because of what God has done for you. And then you say, I want every interaction with the people around me to fill the definition of love. If I'm irritable at the person, whether they deserve it or not, I'm not paying them back the love that is due. And I become bound to that person because I still owe them a debt I have not paid. Does that make sense? Listen, I'm not telling you it's easy. I'm not telling you that this is just automatic. Woohoo, go. You, slap me in the face. Hey, I love you, and hug them. That's not, I know. But does my actions, does my response, and do I look for ways to be able to demonstrate love that fills the definition that I'm reading right here? I want to ask you this question. Is there a root of something that is not love in you that is keeping you from honoring another? I ask me. Is there a root of something that is not love in me that is keeping me from honoring another? There's been a lot of times in my life where I've been able to answer that question with, yeah, there's a root of something there that won't allow me to shake their hand, that won't allow me to go to them and submit in that moment. And in the earthly, it's legitimate. In our mindset, I have every right. But in God's economy, I owe them. And I'm in debt to them. And I'm bound by that is keeping me from repaying that I owe them. Is there something in me that doesn't look like 1 Corinthians 13 that is keeping me from demonstrating honor to someone else? Not just face value. Because God doesn't look at all this. He looks at the heart. They might not have earned your honor. They might not have earned your respect. They might not have earned your love, but they are owed it. And it is up to you to pay the debts that you owe. A believer walking in honor always pays what is owed. Always. I want you to bow your heads. And I'm a couple minutes later here than I meant to be, but just I want God to speak to you here. Because earlier today, I felt so strongly that there may be some in this room. You're bound, and you can't get ahead. And you want to... You've held on to the hurt. You've held on to the bondage. You've held on to the bitterness, the hate. You've held on to the earthly truth that that person has done you wrong. Or that situation has done you wrong. And you've held on to that. And that is an earthly truth. And that's even become almost like a warm blanket for you. You are willing to believe the lie that God is okay with you being bound. Because you being set free means you've got to give up something that you want to keep. You want to hold on to the bitterness. You want to hold on to the hurt. I really believe that God is telling you that if you would pay the debt that you owe. This has nothing to do financially. I don't know anything about anybody's finances. But pay the debt that you owe. That person that in the earthly economy does not deserve your honor, respect, and love. You give it to them because honor, respect, and love is not earned. It's just owed. Pastor, I can't. You don't understand the hurt. I don't understand your hurt, but I understand hurt. And I didn't say that this was easy for you in the flesh, but I did say and have said that with God all things are possible. I have told you that you didn't deserve it, but God gave it. So now we give away what is unearned. I did tell you that you're in bondage and that Jesus has come to set you free. The times where you have just been content with staying away from that person. I believe, and I'm going to pray, and if you would pray, that God would open up that door for you to be able to not just be content with staying away, but to literally see them as a privilege that you would have to be able to love, honor, and respect them. That person that has been such a thorn in your side, that I'm going to believe that God is going to open up the doors both in your heart and in the world for you to have an opportunity to demonstrate love that has not been earned, to demonstrate honor that maybe because of your hurts, maybe real, maybe not, but it's real to you in that moment that you feel like you can't, that you're going to be able to give honor. That it is my privilege, as hard as it is my privilege to serve you. It is my privilege to love you. It is my privilege to give honor and respect to you, because I don't want to be a man who owes you something or a woman who owes you something that I haven't yet given you. I owe you honor. I owe you respect. I owe you love. I owe it. You're bound to the one that you owe a debt to. But when you pay the debt, you're set free. You're set free.